What's up, y'all? Kimmy Rock. What's up, Doc?
What's up, Doc? Hey,
Shout out to Shaq's debut
and
song,
Schnickens.
Frushnickens, that's like 92. You're not listening to a hip hop podcast nor a Shaquille O'Neal podcast. You're listening to Save the Date. I'm one of your hosts, Heath.
What's good, everybody? This is your other host, Jamie. Oh,
Yeah, thank you for listening. As always, happy to have you here with us as you journey with us for this next half hour, talking about our topic of the day. But before that, Save the Date now on TikTok and Instagram. Always check us out there. We're always posting content. You can always review a lot of the content that we posted. And today, switching gears, our topic is, no drum roll please, chemistry versus compatibility. Finding the right balance, understanding the difference and why both matter. Just taking a moment of silence to prep for what we're going to talk about. Now, we've talked about this before, and some topics bear retreading, reinforcing, recollecting, recalling. Yep, and get your ass tomorrow. And get your ass tomorrow.
Recall.
For those who don't know, Jamie and I have bonded when we first became friends off our love for the movie Total Recall, and that was just some excerpts of that movie. So, chemistry versus compatibility. I first heard this idea explored through a friend of mine who was watching the Jay Shetty podcast, where there was an extensive conversation about the difference between chemistry and compatibility when it comes to relationships. So let's get right into a definition as far as we're concerned. Chemistry is that feeling of instantaneous connection or spark you have when you first meet somebody or you're journeying with somebody. There are times you meet someone and for some reason there's like an instant spark or connection. It's superficial. It's not deep, because how could it be deep? We just met. We barely know each other. But for some strange, odd reason, out of the universe or of universes, me and you connected, and we have this kinship already that's almost looked like it's baked in, almost if we were made for each other. The way that a male plug plugs into the female part of an outlet, it just goes together. Compatibility is a little bit different. Compatibility is the process of building time and focus and energy and strategy with someone to live a life that is mutually beneficial, mutually edifying, and I would argue built on longevity. And compatibility is a lot different than chemistry, because some people you can have a great chemical romance with, but others, that same person, I should say, you can't be compatible with. Because compatibility thinks about longevity. And when you think about longevity, you have to think about what are the anchors that are going to bring us together? What are the goals that are going to unite us? I once had a friend say to me, goals don't matter. Well, rather, achieving goals don't matter as a couple. It's the fact that you have goals, because whether you achieve them or not is inconsequential. The goal keeps you focused on communicating and finding mutual interest in achieving and going to the same place. Now, you may not achieve it, but it's about you're on the journey together. And journeying together requires communication, requires skill, requires patience. It requires an understanding, as Esther Perel will say, that sometimes your long-term relationship or marriage will require you to be married to the same person 4 or 5 different times, because that person's evolving and you're evolving. And so you have to be with somebody you're compatible with, who you have these deeper connections that come with communication, time, patience, and I mentioned strategy, and learn how that's going to mesh in order for you guys to go the long haul. So I really think that this chemistry versus compatibility thing has been coming up a lot recently, because we are living in a chemistry-laden world. Everything's about the instant spark. Right before we got on, I told Jimmy I was watching a woman on Instagram rating men's profiles, dating profiles, and it was funny. And she was just like, yo, I don't like that guy's shape. There's something about his shape. Now, the guy didn't look out of shape. He didn't look fat. He didn't look, ridiculous, big, or super skinny. He just looked like a big muscle-bound dude. But she was like, yeah, something about shape, because I'm skinny and I'm small, and I just think about how that shape is going to look with me. When we watch Pop the Balloon, you see men where women say, you're fine. It's just that you came in here with no socks on. And I really can't date no man who's going to wear shoes without socks. Even though that's probably not what he does all the time. That's just what I chose for today. Yet it becomes this criteria that you use to write somebody off. And so everything is about chemistry. Everything's about what I see, the aesthetic, the superficial, that I can instantly grab onto and feel like, all right, there's a vibe there, because we vibing now. And because there's so much vibing, there isn't a lot of planning and strategizing together, because most people are using the vibe test as a way to say, no, thank you.
I feel like they got the process backwards.
How so?
To me, the vibe, the connection is something that you work towards. Whereas the chemistry is, like you said, it's instantaneous, it's instinctual. So I think people confuse the process of like, basically I'm saying connection is something that you can't have. Like they treat connection like it's supposed to come like chemistry. Like there's this autopilot or automatic sensation that's supposed to come from, or automatic outcome
I agree.
that's supposed to come from. And it's like really that's what the chemistry is. That's the
Yes.
automatic thing. But you
Yes.
got to work towards the connection.
I agree. And
Yeah.
this is why sometimes you get with somebody who you're chemically vibing with, but can't have compatibility. The sex may be great, the vibes may be cool and may be on, but compatibility wise, they don't want the same things you want out of life. And because you start to privilege as you get older and emphasize as you age and mature, those things that mean something to you in life, that's when you start to realize what we have chemically is insufficient for getting me or us to where we have to go. We have to be on the same page about what we want out of life. And even if we want something that's a little bit different, I need to know that you can be supportive of me, and you need to know I can be supportive of you. And what you start to realize in the compatibility journey is how important that is to just even your self-development and your psychological safety. And so while that person is giving you maybe a physical comfort, all the other parts of you are atrophying, right? They're dying, they're decaying. And then now you need to figure out, what do I do? I feel connected to you in this kind of real, kind of almost novelesque way, meaning it's something you would read in a novel, something you see in a sitcom. We were in the room, we were at the club, we locked eyes, we just drawn to each other, floated through in the mist to each other, made love. It was ecstatic and wonderful. And then, we were doing that for 2 or 3 years, and it never got whack, it never got boring, but I never got progressed in my job. I never put away that emergency fund. I never started planning for and going on those trips that I said I wanted to go to. I didn't have that money from my, niece's quinceañera. All these things that were meaningful to you don't get accomplished, or they come and they go because you're so caught up in the haze of the chemical attraction, not having someone who's building life with you and helping you progress. And of course, you helping them progress. I just think it's just where people are at, because the mechanisms of dating have become all about vibes. And because those mechanisms are the predominant mechanisms in which we use to interact with each other, most people aren't building compatibility. It's not as gamified through the app and app culture as these light connections are, as this vibe, as these.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with vibes. I think, like I was saying, though, people sometimes just confuse them.
Of
Like they
course.
they treat the vibes like that's what you build the relationship off of, and it's like that's what comes after you have the relationship. That's what comes in the flow of, we've spent time getting to know each other. We've created this vibe that when we get together, it doesn't require a whole lot of management. You know what I mean? Like it's an ease and a flow when we get to, like, that's a vibe. But I think people confuse or conflate that instinctual rise, that sensation that they get
Mm-hmm.
physically with
Mm-hmm.
vibes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, nah, that's just your
Mm-hmm.
flesh. That's just your body reacting to something that you like, that you see. As that scripture says, the eyes affect the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you see
Absolutely.
something you like, sometimes, I think that's why people say there's love at first sight. Because sometimes you could see somebody beautiful enough, handsome enough, that you're like, my God,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I love this person.
Absolutely. And I think that is real. And I think that love has some bite or weight to it. And I don't think it's a false love. What I'm saying is, though, compatibility comes with work and communication and doing. And if you just stay up here in the treetops and never get down to the roots, how do you fully understand how that tree is going to have functions? You never really do, because all you do is just hang on the leaves. When the leaves are gone, you're a little sad, and the leaves come back, and you follow that cycle, never truly understanding how that tree functions or operates. And you got to get down to the roots, because the roots is where the magic truly happens. That's where the depth of love truly happens for all of us who are endeavoring to have these committed, thriving long-term relationships.
Yeah, they say the ocean is most beautiful on the floor.
Yeah, it's the quietest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the turbulence is the top, and they teach you that in
Mm-hmm.
meditation.
Yep.
But when you sink down,
Mm-hmm.
there's a peace there that just exists and just resonates and reverberates out and emanates and is all part of you. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us avoid that with vibe culture. Again, nothing wrong with vibe culture in and of itself. I'm just saying, when the majority of the conversation is being occupied with vibe culture, because the mechanisms that underpin dating, which is mainly app culture, is all about vibes. So now the conversation's crowded. You're not getting a comprehensive conversation about dating, or getting an inclusive conversation about dating that would be more impactful for you to make better or more informed decisions about who you date, when you date, how you're going to date, and getting to, as Simon Sinek calls about, your irresistible why. Why are you dating? Why are you doing this? Why does this match or this long-term vision matter to you so much?
With this person that you're choosing to do it with,
Yes.
for sure. Like, and like really investigating that.
Yeah. And it's important that we find other mechanisms now, to go back to this whole idea of a conversation, to put in conversation with the app mechanisms. We talk about, and a lot of times on this podcast, the critique of app culture and the critique of apps specifically, and somewhat app culture. But I think the biggest thing is they're not going away for the foreseeable future. They may evolve with AI, and they will. Is how do you now have this other conversation that's really bringing you that much closer to what you say that you want? Because when you speak to people, they say they want to find their person, they want to find their soulmate, they want to connect, they actually want this committed relationship, however they imagine it to be. Yet you're never in a position to entertain that vision or cultivate it, because everything is just surface level.
And I think people love the chaos of the surface level. To stick with that ocean analogy,
Well,
I don't know what it is. I mean,
but it's gamified.
Yeah,
It's safe, right? What I heard there's big
emotionally
squids.
safe. It's
Yeah,
emotionally safe,
of course.
but physically, health wise, sometimes it's really not.
Yeah.
But it seems like, I guess, if people are really engaging to that level, then they're saying that's the trade off. Like, hey, listen, as long as my heart is safe, I could take having chlamydia, or I might could, you know what I'm saying? Some people are just rolling the dice like that. It's like, yo, as long as I don't have to suffer or endure a broken heart,
I'll take
okay.
these STIs. I'll run these STIs up.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Couple of antibiotic flights.
Yeah.
And we back in the game.
A Z-Pack.
Man,
yeah,
crazy.
I'm good.
Crazy.
But sticking with that analogy, I think on the surface we see boats. We understand some of the nature of sailing and transportation via water. Now we have submarines, but submarines are built differently. Submarines are built to withstand all that pressure at the bottom, or as you go deeper. And there are wonders down there, but you have to be ready to do that. You can't just take a regular yacht and just put it under the ocean. When it goes in the ocean, you're dead. It's sinking. So you need a vessel that is capable to withstand the depths of that level of ocean, at that level in the ocean, and also allows you to explore it safely, to come back up top, because up top still is important, right? The vibes are still important, and that's important too, but you want to have a vessel that can do both.
Yeah, and that's essentially what, I guess, building really building a relationship is. It's not just leaning on the chemistry. It's not just leaning on the connection, but it's finding that intersection where they meet and actually produce a connection.
Yeah. I mean, and you hear it all the time, men will talk about their wives, walking on their wives making dinner, and just, her hair's in a scrunchy ponytail. She's probably got some sweatpants on, but there's just something about her je ne sais quoi, that just draws him to her. Same thing with women. He's taking out the garbage. He's playing with the kids. It's just like, just when I feel like I don't want to be with him, so vibes are there, like you're saying. It's just happening through a lens of compatibility, because we're now raising a family. And I love the way you deal with our daughters, or the way you deal with our children. I love, I love the way, you're attentive to the lawn and you take care of things in the house. I love the way that even though my mom pisses you off, you're just so graceful around dealing with her, babe. Like, thank you. These are the things that now are the vibe. The vibe's still there. Yes. The vibe is still there. It's just not just on this superficial, I just met you across the room. This is something I would read in an Ernest Hemingway novel or a Toni Morrison novel. This is something that, has gravitas, because you've been through life and you're lifing together. Sometimes successfully, sometimes chaotically, sometimes you don't know which is which, but you're doing it together, and you keep coming back together, and you build up other entry points and channels for saying, yeah, man, this is my person. This is like the vibe we have. We've created our own energy signature together.
Yeah. And I think the more I was thinking about it, I think maybe this is where this kind of new modernization of dating is, where people are like, what you and I would call a more substantive or substantial relationship, that's like people's marriage now. And What used to be like boyfriend girlfriend type stuff is what people are calling dating. So it's like you talk about, the gravitas of relationships to me is getting less and less.
Yeah,
There's less and less weight to it because
yeah,
people are just like, yo, we can base it off of the sneaky links that we have. We can base it off
yeah,
of this
yeah.
very surface chemistry that we have. The fact that we both look good in VIP together, or the fact that we both know how to travel and take these trips. Like, listen, y'all gonna
Our
have some
fit is
great
gonna be
times on these
crazy.
trips.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
gonna have some great times. You're gonna take some great pictures on these trips. But then when you get back to day life, it's like, yo, I really am not compatible with this
yeah.
person at all.
I'm not connected. Yeah,
But I mean, and I guess that's the thing I was trying to say is sometimes I feel like people can build a connection off of whatever works for them. But in terms of that time factor that you talk about, I just don't know how sustainable it is over time if it's not based on something substantive.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Because there are people who are in relationships right now because they both said, yo, on paper, we look good together. This makes
Yes,
sense.
yes,
Let's make it work.
yes.
Like I already foresee that you're probably gonna have your sides. I'm gonna have my relationships over here, but for the sake of us keeping this facade going and this marriage together, yo, let's present this united front. Everybody thinks everything is okay. And it's like the connection was built on this concept of making it look good, but I just don't know how sustainable it is because that's not a substantive reason to do it.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point when you talk about it wasn't a substantive reason to do it because people do seem to be reimagining the order
Mm-hmm.
of relationships
Mm-hmm.
from the East to now. So what you just said, boyfriend and girlfriend relationships are like the new marriage, and the situationships are the new dating, and the dating's just like whatever. If they've changed it, and that's crazy to me because I've said in the past, and we had this conversation on the podcast about how I feel like when you listen to people's situationships, y'all go out together. Sometimes y'all not necessarily sneaky linking, right? So that's a different layer. But let's say you have a situationship. You're gonna at least maybe go to brunch once in a while. You may go out. Y'all may have a good time. You may laugh. You pay for each other's Ubers. You support each other. I'm like, yo, y'all in a relationship. In the 90s, that was a relationship.
Hard body.
That was a relationship. But then if you say that's your boyfriend or your girlfriend, no, what you're talking about. That ain't, man. We just together.
Too
And the
much pressure.
air quoted. We're just together.
It's complicated.
Yeah, and I'm like, how's it complicated when you're checking all the boxes of what people do for each other in a relationship? You just don't have the title. But it seems like there's this new level of comfort living at a superficial level together and keeping the label, what people may call superficial, as opposed to once you put a label on it, now the whole thing's going to get crazy. Whereas you may have seen back in the 80s, boyfriend and girlfriend, long-term boyfriend and girlfriends. That's my aunt's friend, that's grandma's friend. And then it got crazy when you put the label marriage on it. Now cats ain't even at the marriage level. We don't want to get crazy at the boyfriend girlfriend level. It's just the game is totally different, man.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it really is. And it's fascinating to me how there are so many relationships based on just choice. Like, I'm just going to choose to be with this person because we said we were going to be
On
together,
paper, on
and
paper,
it's not necessarily anything that's moving me emotionally. It's not necessarily something that I feel like is really pouring into me,
no joy.
but it's checking a box. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like in terms of all of the things that you're supposed to do along the life timeline and your
yeah,
lifespan. I'm supposed to get married. I'm supposed to have kids. And it's like, I know a lot of people who did that and they executed that plan and that life and are miserable, bro. Like,
yeah,
miserable.
yeah, yeah.
Because whether it was the person or the actual union itself, there was nothing substantive to really keep it
Yes, yes. The dynamic was never founded on vital truths that existed
between them two. Yeah.
between those two people, between both of them. And the other person may not be a bastard or abusive. It can just be everyday life and you're lifing together, but you don't feel any joy. You don't feel any joy. You don't feel any overwhelming, overcoming joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you made a decision off of data points, and love is hard to manage by the data points. They need to be a part of the conversation, but when you're strictly managing by the data points, you have a problem. Just like when you're strictly just managing off the overly emotional, it doesn't matter. We don't need a house. We don't need to live anywhere. Let's just be me and you. And you're, again, taking an excerpt out of some kind of dime store romance novel or some grand, master writer from the 20th century who wrote about love. And we could think, put in any of those writers there. Those are unrealistic expectations too. So there's a middle ground. Again, like you're saying, you can get to vibes through compatibility. You can get through vibes through this long-term building POV, point of view. I just believe you have to be intentional at the outset, and the outset being when you're dating, or when you're swiping now, because everything's been reimagined, the order, about how do I challenge my biases about who I'm meeting and the way that I'm meeting them, number one, and then two, who I'm speaking to and vibing with and why I'm vibing with them. I think you have to ask questions out of yourself, because I think we get into these holes very easily because we are gamified through the apps to go down these holes, to be in these echo chambers. And we talked about the last podcast, as someone said, through Chat GPT, there's a psychosis issue happening through Chat GPT, where people are using Chat GPT to analyze themselves. And because Chat GPT is just doing a great job of bringing them down this hole that's all about looking at themselves positively or self-aggrandizing, people are starting to consider themselves prophets. They think they're prognosticators of the future, and they're having these, delusions of grandeur that are just starting to overwhelm and overtake their life. And their family and friends start to intervene and get worried. And what's happening is Chat GPT isn't giving you the real-time feedback to challenge or convict you. Not that it's not capable of that, but your line of questioning, because prompts are what actually are or what moves AI at this point. Your prompts are so self-aggrandizing and self-referential, you're not getting opposing points of view that could challenge your notion of who you think you are. You've gone from mild-mannered middle manager to prophet of the future in a matter of prompts. And I think the same things happen with dating. We are going down these self-referential holes where it's like, oh, this person's this, and this person's that, and this person's this, and this person's that. And you're never really getting to points where you're interacting with people to assess and judge their character, and for them to assess and judge your character, so we can get beyond the superficial and get into the nitty-gritty of who am I, who are you, and yo, can we really build a life together?
Yeah. So much of the conversation is online rhetoric. You know what I mean? People are assessing and judging people through online rhetoric. You know what I mean? Like I've really had women say, I feel like men are the enemy. Women that I've like matched with on apps before, doing field research, just talking, getting just to see what the conversation is out here. Like, yo, a lot of them regurgitate the rhetoric that's online. And I'm pretty sure, like, dudes are doing the same thing. I actually had a friend tell me that the same thing. Like a lot of Kevin Samuels rhetoric, a lot of Andrew Tate, a lot of red pill stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, but those are the lenses people are viewing potential matches through.
Yeah.
Online rhetoric.
I had a homegirl of mine who said the exact same thing. She had multiple dates and from different age ranges, and these men were all espousing the same kind of rhetoric, because we're spending an inordinate amount of time on social media drinking in ideas that scratch a psychological itch for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that is the ultimate psychological itch all human beings have is, it's not me, it's them. It's not us, it's them. They're the problem. It's the Warriors. The Warriors did it. It was the Warriors. But, laugh at that end of that movie. That's what's happening to a lot of us. Life is circling around us. The realities of life are impinging upon us. And we're sitting there, instead of assessing the situation that we're about to get crushed, we're blaming whoever else is out there, the out there person, or the out there people, the out there group. And this is what's starting to kill a lot of our ability to not only connect, but also to be creative. Human beings are insanely creative. And if you look at the history of African Americans in this country, with so little, they created so much. And so human beings, especially under pressure and stress and oppression, can even be that much more creative. And we're missing out on being creative because we're so busy pointing at the other person instead of creating, pointing at the other group of people instead of creating, instead of ideating, instead of innovating. And it's impacting our dating lives because we're not creating, ideating, innovating in our dating lives. We're not thinking about how to connect with others. And people are just frankly fed up. And I get, for some people, like I've seen some women online talking about men are just, I want to say, they won't say irresponsible, but, I am a grown man and I don't have a driver's license, and can you take me home, and can you plan the date? And I think men have the same kind of basic arguments about women, not being kind, not saying thank you, showing just, hey, thanks for the date, no problem. You got a free meal. I know it was a free meal and you probably won't see me again, but can I just get as a, hey, nice to meet you? Like, still connect with
Mm-hmm.
me as a human being, and we're missing out on all these ways in which people's dignity, Dr. Donna Hicks, we keep bringing her up, people's dignity is kept intact or cherished or given or cultivated. And you have to war against that. It goes back to those questions. If you're going down these gamified holes that are self-referential and based only on your preferences, how are you going to challenge that? I'm not saying it shouldn't be allowed. It's your preferences. Enjoy. I'm just saying if that's all you're getting, then where is the opportunities for life to shape and reshape you so that you can actually connect with people? It's the same issue with watching tons and tons of porn. You go down your preferential trail and you never really get to interact with women, number one, from a man to women now, the heterosex kind of narrative. You're never really hearing ideas about sex that actually are from your partner. You're just fulfilling ideas that scratch an itch for you, that, as I always say, that are unrealistic, because you wouldn't watch Commando by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 1980s and learn how to fight 5 dudes at the same time. That's a bad template for learning how to take on multiple attackers. You would go to a dojo or a studio, Krav Maga, Lot, Kali, and you would train for years on how to do that. You wouldn't just watch it and do it, yet you'll watch porn and think that you can do these things that are unrealistic and not really true.
Knowing you don't even have the toolery.
Knowing you ain't got the
If we keep it in a
the
buck,
tool. Yeah, you ain't
if
got the
we
tool.
keep
Yeah.
it in a buck,
You can't
yeah.
do all that. Yeah, because you really ain't got the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my biggest takeaway from today that I'd like people to have is, it's okay to have chemistry. It's okay to have your preferences. How are you challenging those preferences so that you can find ways to connect? And this is especially important for people who are recognizing they feel disconnected. You don't do more of the problem to solve the problem. You do more of something different to hopefully generate a solution that then solves that problem. And for me, it's asking yourself those questions and taking calculated risks to find better connections, especially if you're not finding them right now.
Yeah. And if you do have chemistry, try not to make it an attachment. You know what I mean? Like make it a connection thing. Like if you feel chemistry with somebody and you see that it could go somewhere, don't let that lead the conversation alone. Let there be something else. Because I feel like what I'm saying is with just the chemistry, or when it comes just from a place of something I see that excites me, I feel like that's what creates attachments instead of a connection. An attachment is always going to be about something I need that's going to fulfill me or make me feel a way, not necessarily something I'm looking to pour into as well. It's not going to be a reciprocal, a mutual give and take type of relationship.
Yeah. A great difference between attachment and connection.
Yeah.
That's something we should talk about some more. Well, that's our time for today, folks. Thank you for listening. Again, check us out at Save the Date Now, Instagram, TikTok. Always a pleasure. Until next time, I'm Heath.
I'm Jamie. Peace.
Take care.